We just put all of our money, our savings into this platform, and I found out I was pregnant.
Entrepreneurship is a roller coaster, full of risks and surprises. But what do you do when you're pregnant, have invested everything into a new app, and you're facing the unexpected?
I can't change who I am. I can't change my sex. I can't change that I'm going to be a mother. There's so many uncertainties, and that baby wasn't planned. I'm here, I'm going to own it, and we will get through it.
In this powerful conversation, Kim shares her incredible journey.
I was raising funds for my company, and I had an investor that wanted to officially lead our next round. And we had been doing a lot of the conversations through like Zoom or online. They said, come on in, we want to present a term sheet, we're ready to move forward. And so I was all excited. Well, the term on the table was like, I think it was like 4.5 million or 5 million cap. Calls me the next week and he said, Kim, we decided that the valuation is going to be, it was like $1 million less. What happened? We have been crushing goals. We've been doing all the things that we said. He's like, wow, we did take into consideration your life event. The life event that I just put every penny of our savings. At the time, I was like broken. I'm like, what are we going to do now? We have like $6,000 left.
Defying biases and breaking barriers in the startup world.
A kind of a mind-blowing time because my first thought was, is this legal?
Well, Kim Gamez, wonderful to have you here on the Ginny Show with me. Can you share a moment in your entrepreneurial journey where you had to dig deep because the odds were stacked against you?
It was back 2016. I had an idea for an app, and I convinced my husband to sell our business, our restaurant, and to invest all of that money into this app. I just knew it was going to be something magical. And at the same time, so we just put all of our money, our savings into this platform, and I found out I was pregnant. And I thought the plan was to invest this money and then to raise outside investment. And I knew I was just a girl from Michigan, raising outside capital for a platform that was targeted to the Hispanic market. And I knew I was already up against all these odds, and then I had to do it with a baby bump. And so at that time, I'm like, well, I can't change this. I can't change who I am. I can't change my sex. I can't change that I'm going to be a mother. And so I just looked to see who wouldn't judge me on, the baby bump. And that's, I just took it from there. But yeah, there's so many uncertainties, and like that baby wasn't planned. And so for me, it was just, I'm here, I'm going to own it, and we will get through it.
The mindset that you went to straight away was, I'm just a girl from Michigan. How often does that story come up in your mind, in your entrepreneurial journey, even today?
Honestly, never even taken my sex into consideration.
Yeah.
My very first business, I was so naive. I was 20. My husband and I got married, had a baby, and opened a bar of all things, a Mexican restaurant with a bar at 20 years old. And so I didn't know what it was like to think inside the box. I didn't know the stigma around, entrepreneurship or female entrepreneurs. I didn't know any of that. And so I just really leaned into my customers, really leaned into, my staff, and that we use that same model throughout all of the other businesses that we started. But it was different when I was relying on funding or opportunities from someone else that I had no control over. And so that was just, different for me. And I'm sorry, it was just tough to try to think through that and be like, I can't control this. I can't control what they're thinking about me just by knowing that I'm pregnant. I can't change this. So it's kind of a helpless feeling, but at the same time, I was going to do it with or without him. So
am I correct in hearing that you experience some of the biases when you went to look for funding? Can you kind of expand a little bit more on that experience for you? How did that kind of, I guess, impact you? Did you have to pause and be like, oh, you said that you can control things, but how did you move forward in that space?
Well, is it okay if I tell a story?
Yeah, please do. We love stories here.
Good.
Yeah.
So I won't use any names.
Yeah.
I was raising funds for my company, and I had already had, some investors come in. We already had some great traction, and I had an investor that wanted to officially lead our next round. And we had been doing a lot of the conversations through Zoom or online. And they said, come on in, we want to present a term sheet, we're ready to move forward. And so I was all excited, met the managing director, and he didn't quite present the term sheet. He said, I have to finish up a couple things. I'll get back to you. Well, the term on the table was I think it was 4.5 million or 5 million cap or something. I don't know, some type of term. Well, they came back and he calls me the next week and he said, Kim, we decided that the valuation is going to be, it was like $1 million less. And I said, what happened? We have been crushing goals. We've been doing all the things that we said. And he's like, wow, we did take into consideration your life event. And I was like, what life event? The life event that I just put every penny of our savings. We gave up our nest egg, as in the restaurant that we knew we could get, a salary and income from, to like pour into this new venture. And at the time I was like broken. I'm like, what are we going to do now? We have like $6,000 left. And so I ended up not accepting that term sheet. And then at that time I pivoted to, I need to get into front of funds that are funding female founders. I need to get outside of this area and speak to investors who understand this problem that we're solving. And it just was like a complete mind shift, but I was determined and I ended up doing that. But
Wow.
yeah, it was crazy.
So the life event they were referring to was the baby, and that was like their
Yes.
sole focus.
Yes.
Wow. It also makes me think too, as a fellow entrepreneur, that there is a level of resourcefulness I feel that female entrepreneurs have to come to the table with based on these prejudices or biases that we receive.
It was crazy. I mean, it was just a kind of a mind-blowing time because my first thought was, is this legal?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, yes, it is. They can do whatever they want with their money. They can ask you about anything. And so, and I just kept saying, like, even when they said, I said, would you have asked a man, would you have done that to like a man that walked in the room? Because I know, and this isn't my first rodeo. I have 5 kids. Like, this is my 5th child, which again, then that they were like, whoa, now she really can't handle the thing. I'm like, no, when I have a new baby, I actually handle it pretty well. Now I asked my husband, he's a hot mess. And so I'm like, but you wouldn't have asked him if he was pitching like the company. All of a sudden I'm devalued because I'm having a child. So
That's insane. Just that. Have you experienced other prejudices like that before, Kim, in other areas of your life?
at first, so my last company was for quinceañeras.
Yeah.
It was a marketplace for, Hispanic celebration. So my husband's from Mexico, saw this need. I was helping my niece plan her quinceañera. But here I am, a 6 foot tall white girl from Michigan with a quinceañera planning app. So I initially got some pushback, like, who are you to say what is trending and hot in the quinceañera world? But I soon just kind of owned the role. And I owned the whole, like, yes, I know I'm a 6 foot tall white woman from Michigan, but I am an expert in this. And just kind of like owning my faults. I always say, this is what I know, this is what I don't know, and this is how I'm going to get there. And that was one of the things, like, I know I'm not part of this culture.
Yeah.
But what I do know is I love it. I've been married in the culture for the last 20 years. I understand how things are planned. And we're going to build this amazing platform for families to continue to keep these traditions alive. Anyway, but that's kind of how I go against, like, every kind of pushback is like, this is what I know, this is what I don't know, but this is how I'm gonna get there. And then you kind of own the conversation.
Where did your entrepreneurial spirit come from?
It was funny because in school, I had the traditional jobs in mind. I was gonna be a nurse or a teacher. And then I was like, no, I'm gonna cut hair. But when I graduated from high school, my parents were real estate investors and they owned their own brokerage. And when I graduated, I got around $2,000 in cash gifts for my graduation. And my dad said, you could actually take that money and put a down payment on a rental property. And I was like, well, that'd be hot. That's like way sexier than like a designer bag or some trip or something. Like, I want to own real estate. How amazing would that be?
Yeah.
So I put a down payment on my first rental property when I was 18 years old. And but I didn't know that's like what normal 18-year-old kids, I didn't know that's what they didn't do. Like, I just thought everybody did that.
Yeah.
I didn't know any different. And so I feel like I've always, my parents didn't work normal hours. They didn't have that like 9 to 5. My dad was always, they were real estate salesmen. So they were, working all kinds of crazy hours with different tactics and being personable. And I don't know, I think I got it from them. But I just really love, like, with our first, like I told you, our first business was a restaurant. And I just really leaned into customers. And it was like, the customers will tell you what they want if you just let them talk. And so I just really love doing that. Like, oh, what are the new trending things? How can I incorporate that in my business? And it wasn't a fear of failing. It was a fear of missing out. That if I wanted to be the first one to try something, because what if it worked?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, I don't have that fear of like, what if it fails? Because I actually kind of hope it does, so then I can move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But which sounds absolutely crazy. But what if it works? I'm actually terrified of like, what if it works? Like, am I the right person for this role?
Right. Is that an imposter syndrome thing, or is that like, well, this is a bigger vision than I ever imagined it to be?
I seem to get into things that, I mean, I feel like I'm really good at marketing and the whole customer discovery and understanding your customer and growing teams. But in industry specific, for example, when you have the restaurants, I'm like, I don't even know how to turn on the fryers. I don't even know how to make the salsa. Like, I don't know how to do these things, but that's okay. So it was really like, yeah, we'll get through it. But it was just that fear of like, am I the right person? Like, I don't even know how to do these very basic things of my business. Like, for example, the quinceañera planning app. I was a non-technical co-founder. How was I positioned to grow this app to, we ended up having like 3 million users. Like, was I the right person? And so there's always kind of that doubt because I maybe don't have like the industry or market knowledge, but the core parts of growing a business, I think I'm really good at.
Absolutely, because you bring it back to the customer, right? And I think
Mhm.
nowadays with businesses focusing so much on scale and growth, that initial element of what does a customer actually want, need, require is missing, is kind of overlooked or skated over really quickly.
Yeah. It's totally, I talk to so many founders and it's just dig a little deeper. So if
Yeah.
you ask them a question and they give you a great answer, and then just ask like, why? Or like, how did you find that? Or why do you say that? Or, oh, you like this thing, like what flavor? Or where did you buy? Or how much did you pay for? Like, just dig a little bit deeper and then like gold will appear. I mean, it's crazy. Just let them talk. Stop talking about what you offer, what your big feature is. Listen to them and they're going to tell you exactly what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious too, your amazing skill of listening. I always tell people I think that's the best skill podcasters need to have. Just listen and the gold will come in the same way customers tell you. Being so innovative, Kim, you've got a reputation for innovative thinking. What do you think is the key to staying ahead of the curve and how do you foster that culture of innovation in your team?
It's just always keeping your eyes open, whether it's something that's trending or maybe it's trending in, a completely different industry, but then say, could this actually work for what we're doing or for what we're building? So just always keeping your eyes and ears open for opportunities for you to grow.
Yeah.
I tell that to my team, like, try not to put up those barriers of like, we can't do this because of why. Well, why can't we? Like, if those barriers were removed, could we do it?
Yeah.
And what does it look like?
Yeah. Who's an entrepreneur that's inspired you? You're giving me Sarah Blakely vibes.
She is right up there.
Yeah, yeah.
She is. Oh gosh, I lost her name, but the founder of is it Poopery? Mainly because I use it. I have 5 kids, married to a Mexican man. The spray, poop
Oh,
spray,
agree.
pill spray
I
stuff.
use it too, but I don't know who have used it too, but I don't know who is the founder. Let me Google it while you're talking about her. Go for it.
Yeah, but it's just like growing a great product in an industry that nobody really wants to talk about, but is a big need, and growing it. And she had like, I don't know if she still has, 100% equity, but something just like, I don't need anyone else to do this. I could do this on my own is so empowering. So
Susie
that
Bates.
story. Who, I'm sorry?
Susie Bates, is that Susie?
Yeah.
Susie Bates.
Hmm.
Yeah, she kind of similar to you in that tenacity of I can do this myself. And even when you were given that evaluation, you're like, you know what? I don't need you. I can look for other resources. Given that mentality, and I think like what I love about that, Kim, too, is that one, we talked about resourcefulness, but it's now that we have, because of women like you, we are able to have that option to look at other resources. 50 years ago, our grandmothers, our mothers, they didn't have the option to even file for a credit card, right? But now we can be like, okay, there are other funds available. How important do you think it is for women to be at the table in these decisions? Because it's not just entrepreneurship, it's also healthcare, right?
I mean, I don't know the exact percentage. I'm going to say 50%, of the population is women just because I'm just going to pull that out of my butt.
Yeah.
But we should have a voice. I'm even looking like currently at like Soberish, my current company.
Yeah.
And there's so many women that are like, oh, these type of products have helped with like premenopause and menopause. And I'm like, really? But why isn't anybody really talking about that on social media? I'm like, mainly because it's for women who are past their like entrepreneur age to help solve problems.
Yep.
Men definitely don't care.
No.
And, and at that point, like women are like, I just don't have a voice. What could I do? So part of me now is like, what can I do?
Yeah.
for my future self when I go through menopause, is there anything I can do right now to help that? So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we totally need a voice. And I
Yeah.
don't know how to go into it, but we need a voice. But it has to be, part of me with being a female founder is I actually hate saying I'm a female founder, if that makes sense. I just want to be a founder, period.
It's like with gay marriage when people like, it's not a gay car park.
Yep. I don't
Yeah.
want a label. I just want to be a great founder.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
Exactly. Speaking
a
of
great leader or whatever.
speaking of you being a great leader and a great founder, I want to talk about Soberish. Talk me through how you came up with such a product.
Okay, so I've told you a little bit about the app that we started. It grew from an idea to over 3 million users in 5 years. And when I was growing that app, I'd come home like after a long day of work and I'd have a cocktail or a glass of wine to take the edge off. Well, in 2022, that company was acquired. And around the same time, my mom moved in with us because my mom struggles with alcoholism. And I was like, I should be like relaxing and doing all these things, but, and maybe having more wine or more tequila to relax. And it was like, no, maybe we should try some other options. There's all these non-alcoholic alternatives. But I'm like, well, that's not exactly fun. I like the fun associated with alcohol too.
Right.
And so I'm like, Mom, there's all these products that say they could actually give you a buzz without the booze. And so we just started exploring these new products. I was not looking for a business. Thought it'd be fun to start posting on social media our reviews. Cause I'm like, this will be a fun like hobby with my mom to like just go on and like be like, this tastes like garbage or whatever.
Yeah.
And so we started doing these video reviews. Brands started reaching out for us to try their product. We had a couple videos go viral and I was like, oh my God, Mom, we're like influencers. This is like the best side gig ever. Like we're getting free product, whatever. And then like with my tech background now, it was last August. I was like, I'm going to put up a landing page to see actually what kind of or sales we're giving to these brands.
Yeah.
And so we were tracking conversions and we ended up generating over $60,000 in sales for those brands in 1 month. And I was like, well, holy shit, this is not a hobby. This could actually be a business. And so I convinced my husband to let me go do my thing again. So he's like, go. Be busy. You're a better wife and mother when your brain is occupied. So built what is now Soberish.com. So we're a marketplace for all things Soberish.
Yep.
And then, so we have, products from non-alcoholic wines through hemp infused, spirits and seltzers and what have you.
Yeah.
But then I was like, now that I've explored this market, like I really want a couple of these products to exist. And so now I'm kind of just poking in some holes of products that I think should exist, and we're launching our own product line. So we have a couple products in the market now that have been doing really well. But again, just kind of like the fear of missing out. I want to see these products exist. What's the worst thing that can happen? They can fail and I'll go back to exactly where I'm at.
Yeah.
So I want to try all the things.
I love that you did this with your mum, and I've got to ask, how has your relationship with your mum been impacted by this journey of Soberish?
It's my mom and I have always been really close. I know people say like, my mom's my best friend. My mom is my best friend. But there were many years that I felt like the parent because of her, relationship with alcohol. But now she's back to being, just kind of my best friend, but also it's really fun. Like, it's just fun. Like we goof off, like we try these hemp derived beverages, which have hemp derived THC. And so we get a little bit stony baloney, which is just like a microdose, like microbuzz. Like we're not doing anything crazy,
Right.
but it's really fun to like, I call it the giggle grass online because my mom and I literally turn into raging hyenas. And so it is like comical and fun. And it's like the best part of our day.
Yeah.
But with that being said, my mom, when we used to be invited to weddings or graduations or any type of party where there's typically like alcohol associated with it, she wouldn't go. Or if she did, she'd go and quickly want to go home. And now, because she can actually have something in her hand, whether it's one of our soberish drinks or just a non-alcoholic drink, she feels confident to go to these parties. And so it's just been kind of, outside of just our relationship, actually bringing her into the fold of like soberish, what it actually means to be soberish. It's just been really wonderful.
So she, in a way, she's been included more in certain aspects of your life, because you said growing up she kind of shied away from it.
Yeah. I mean, and it was mainly because she just didn't want to have to answer, to like, oh, or have that like stigma of, oh, she's an alcoholic, that's why she's not drinking.
Yeah.
You know? And
How
so she's like, I don't want that to be my label.
How did that stigma impact you? I had a mum who had mental illness, and I know how that stigma impacted me, but how did the stigma of her being an alcoholic impact you?
Well, both my parents honestly had a bad relationship with alcohol. So it didn't hurt me, I don't think. I think, I'm very cautious of the way like how people act in public and kind of being judged. And I also think that comes from being like an entrepreneur or founder. You're always being looked at. I always said, like, God forbid something happen to me, it would be like on the front page of the paper because I'm like known in my town. And so just being mindful of the way you act and your persona, I mean, it just like is carried with you.
Yeah, sorry, my cat decided to join in on the conversation. I think he wants to be soberish as well.
He
But
can totally be soberish. He just can't have the hemp drive
yeah,
THC,
I,
probably.
I, I think so too. Thanks, George. Before Kim, you talked about, your husband being super supportive of your entrepreneurial ventures. I feel that recently I got married, and every single entrepreneurial roller coaster you go through as an entrepreneur, your spouse rides that with you in some way, shape, or form. Emotionally, financially, mentally, they'll ride that with you.
Mhm.
How important, or what tips would you have for people getting married, to look for in a partner, especially if you're going on that entrepreneurial roller coaster ride?
That's such a loaded question, but first, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Second, it's hard because there's so many things where you can say like, "Oh, look for this" in your like dream partner. But truth be told, I have the cutest, not so tall Mexican husband that I would have never thought would be the yin to my yang.
Yeah,
We are polar opposites. And he's not, I mean, he loves the businesses and he's helpful, but he is not this like visionary thinker. He is more the tactical. I used to say in our restaurants, I was the brains, he was the hands, which kind of sounds terrible. But really, like I was like, oh, we should do all of this. And then he actually made the thing happen. And so I don't know, just somebody who can keep you in check, somebody who's a good listener. Like sometimes I just want to vent and he doesn't maybe understand it, especially like on the tech side. I'll be like, oh, this thing doesn't work. And instead of him saying like, I don't understand any of that, he just listens.
mm,
Just somebody who's a good listener, who can be supportive. Also, like, who can give feedback.
yeah.
Part of me is like, I don't know if have you ever read The Mom Test,
No,
the book?
no.
It's just a book about how like when you're creating a platform or a business, you don't want people to tell you your baby's beautiful. I mean, hopefully they do,
Yeah,
but you really want people to be like, your baby's ugly. Your baby has two like short arms, whatever. Like
yeah,
you need that. And so on the flip side, if you're going to ask for that hard feedback from your partner, you have to be able to get it as well. Because
yeah,
sometimes you don't want that. But for me, I am completely open and we like to talk through things. And so just being very open minded about feedback and about when you're talking about work, because when you have your own business, it's so personal. It is your baby.
yeah,
And so try not to like take that as in like he did just call your baby ugly.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
I love that feedback, and I think that is super important too, because you need to, I guess, distinguish from let's be ask for the feedback, yes, but yeah, you got to be ready to hear it on the other end as well.
Mm.
On that note too, Kim, I'm curious about you having founded and sold businesses the way that you have over the years. How do you prioritize your time each day? You've got a family, you've got thriving businesses, you're going on live having the grass giggles with your mum. How do you prioritize everything?
I keep a really good calendar. I mean, I even just block out time. Like today, I have like a 2 hour block of it says work. Like, and then I
Yeah.
have in the notes everything I better get done during that 2 hours. And it's just like being really good about time management. But then, like, when one of the kids are sick, and I'm like, I did not have you on my schedule. But it's just also just having an amazing team like support you. So, for example, I had some meetings run over, and I was like, and I'm working from home today. And I'm like, I don't have my microphone. So I'm like, hey, Kenzie, do me a salad, bring me my mic. Just having that great support system around you to
Yeah.
help you, whether it's emotional support, actually growing the business, but just also, and I know it sounds so silly, but like keeping a really good calendar and just
Yeah.
being focused and focus on things that matter now.
Yeah.
I myself included, but I talk to a lot of founders that are trying to boil the ocean. They're like, oh, my business, I could do this, 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 and this. And I'm like, have you boiled your cup of water? Like, are you doing the one thing really well?
Yeah.
Boil your cup of water. Then let's move to a bowl. Then let's move to a bathtub. Then try to boil the swimming pool. Maybe one day we might touch the ocean, but right
Mhm.
now, like, we're not even boiling the cup of water.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's funny because I'll like mentor companies, and then I'll do it. I'll say it in my like, I'll be talking to my team, and I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute. We're trying to boil the ocean. Let's just boil the cup of water. So to kind of like reel it back and focus on things that are really important right now.
You mentioned having a great team. What is the number one skill you hire for in a team member?
It's hard. So it's hard at the stage of the company. So if you're like a young startup and there's only like four of you or three of you, everyone needs to feel like they're a founder. Like the whole I only work from 9 to 5, but maybe I'm not even working during that time because we know Kim's brain is off working at like 10 o'clock at night and is sending messages. I need someone to not necessarily work a million hours, a day or a week, but that can keep their mind open to grow the company. So even after hours, that they're like, oh, I thought about this, send an email. Or, oh, like, oh, I'm going to make a note. That they're also thinking kind of similar to like a founder, like, oh, in my role, we should be doing this, or we should be testing this, or like A/B testing, or killing an idea that was bad. Not just like, oh, Kim told me to do this, so we're going to do that. Like they have to own their role, but also be willing to like experiment.
Yeah, I 100% agree too. It's just because the quicker you test things, that, circle of iteration, the quicker you get to the answer faster than your competitors. And to your point, you know what works and what doesn't. Kim, thank you so much for your time on the Ginny Show.
Thanks for having me.